structure or room for the storage of merchandise and commodities. Okay? So as per section 801 of the CMTA, the title is Establishment and Supervision of Customs Bonded Warehouses. Okay? Establishment and Supervision of Customs Bonded Warehouses. Okay? So when we talk about warehouse, we are talking about a structure or room for the storage of merchandise or commodities. Okay? So section 801 here is telling that a customs bonded warehouse, okay, should be established and supervised. Okay? A customs bonded warehouse is, okay, ito daw yung mga customs bonded warehouse. So guys, what do you think is the meaning of a customs bonded warehouse? What is its difference from an ordinary warehouse? Anyone? Do you have any idea of what is the difference of an ordinary warehouse to a customs bonded warehouse? What do you think is the difference, guys? Hello, can you hear me okay? Narinig niyo ba ako ng ayos? Hello? Si Giselle lang ba ay nandito? Nasaan na yung iba? Narinig niyo ba ako? Bukas naman ang videos niyo. So si Giselle, si Janine, yung iba, bukas naman ang videos niyo. Okay, what about the others? Nasaan yung iba? Ano makikita yun? What do you think is the difference? Okay. What about Janine? Janine Garcia. Janine Garcia, are you there? Janine, para tayo nag-spirit of the glass dito. We talk about ordinary warehouses. These are just warehouses that are not subject to customs control. But a customs bonded warehouse is a warehouse wherein the Bureau of Customs has a control over. Okay? So that is the difference between an ordinary warehouse. So an example of an ordinary warehouse is a warehouse that is owned by a private entity. Okay, so for example, a company, for example, Lucky Me company, okay? So they have their own warehouse for their goods, for the storage of their goods, but their goods are not imported, okay, or they are not to be exported. They are just local warehouses and they are not subject to the custody, or they are not subject to the supervision and control of the Bureau of Customs. Is that clear? Hello? Okay. So as per section 801, again, of our CMTA, it is saying that when the business of the port requires such facilities, it is the district collector, okay, subject to the approval of the commissioner, that shall designate and establish warehouses for use as public and private bonded warehouses, yards, or for other special purposes. All such warehouses and premises shall be subject to the supervision of the district collector, who shall impose such conditions as may be deemed necessary for the protection of the revenue and of the goods stored therein. In the exercise of the district collector's supervisory functions herein, and in the Bureau's implementation of this chapter, existing contracts of private operators with appropriate government agency or regulators such as but not limited to PPA or Philippine Ports Authority, Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, and PPDEC, Industrial Authority or PIA, and their respective authorities and powers already granted by law, shall not be impaired or adversely affected. Okay? So section 801 is just telling us that it is the district collector that has the power to establish and supervise a customs banded warehouse. So since a customs banded warehouse are warehouses that are controlled by the Bureau of Customs, then it is specifically the duty of the district collector, okay? But these are subject to the approval of the commissioner to designate or establish a certain warehouse as a public or private banded warehouse. Okay. So next question, what is the difference between private and public banded warehouse? Joyce and Desagun. Joyce and Desagun. Are you there? Joyce and? Joyce and Desagun. Okay, what is the difference between a public and a private banded warehouse? What is the difference between a public?
Ang public warehousing facilities are owned and operated by third party. Like the employee facilities are owned and operated by a company division.
So what about the public? Public warehouse.
Facilities are owned and operated by third party.
So, by a third party. So, sino tong mga third party na to? And give me an example. Okay. What about Lyra? What do you think is the difference between public and private warehouses? Okay. What about you, Oliver Sandoval? What is the difference between public and private warehouse? Wala ka ng idea. Okay. Ronald Bisigan. What is a public banded warehouse and a private banded warehouse?
Ang public banded warehouse po ay governmental at ang private po ay owned by government.
Okay. So when we talk about, thank you so much for your idea, Ronald. Okay, but when we are talking about private and public banded warehouses, okay, so when we talk about public banded warehouse, this is a warehouse facility that is licensed by BOC to receive and store general cargoes for exportation, transfer to another CW or PESA or Freeport, or for local consumption in the same state when the cargoes were imported. While a private banded warehouse is a warehouse facility licensed by BOC as well to import, receive, store articles for its production intended for domestic consumption, withdrawal of which shall remain only upon payment of duties, taxes, and other charges due thereon. Okay? So don't worry because later on with this course, we're going to study further about the different kinds of banded warehouse. Okay? But anyways, thank you for all your the information that you have provided me. So yung mga hindi pa alam, mga hindi pa nakakaalam, don't worry because we're going to study further all about CBWs or customs bonded warehouses. We are just in the introduction and we are just going to know more about the words that are being used here. Okay? So what about yards? Do you have any idea of what yards is? Because Section 801 also is telling us that the district collector, subject to the approval of the commissioner, can designate and establish yards. Okay? Or establish a warehouse to be used as yards. Ano naman daw yung yards? Do you have any idea of what yard is? John Lloyd Boa. John Lloyd Boa, do you have any idea of what yards are? John Lloyd? Do you have any idea of what a yard is?
No idea.
No idea. Okay, what about John Paul? John Paul, are you here? Wala. John Lloyd has no idea. Jomel Nagla. Not here. Laika de Guzman. Do you have any idea of what a yard is? Wala din. Winkle Marshall. Winkle Marshall? Yes. Do you have any idea of what a yard is? Yard. Yarda sa Tagalog. Yarda. Yard. Do you have any idea of what a yard is? Yard. Ano daw yung yard? Yarda. Winkle. What is a yard? Hello? What is a yard? Yes? Who's that? Giselle, what do you mean of a yard? Ano yung sa any idea about a yard? Okay, very good, Giselle. So when we talk about yard, this is a place within the pier or within the port where the containers are being stored into. Okay? So basically, yards are really under the supervision of the Bureau of Customs since they are inside the port area. But there are also yards from private ports or private locators wherein they also store their containers but they are outside or they are not under the control of the Bureau of Customs. Okay? So we just need to determine what's the difference between both. Okay? But again, don't worry because in the process of studying customs warehousing, we're going to determine the differences of those places. Okay? But anyway, very good, Giselle. What about Rachel Ann? Rachel Ann Kapasha. Rachel, are you there? Rachel. Hello. Rachel, are you there? Absent si Rachel. Rachel. Okay, so since wala si Richelle, let us continue. Are you still there, guys? Can you still hear me? Okay, very good. Let's continue. Okay. So let's continue on reading section 801. Okay, goods manufactured in whole or in part of imported materials and intended for exportation may be made and manufactured in abandoned manufacturing warehouse subject to the following conditions. So, sinasabi dito na yung mga goods daw that are imported in whole or parts only and they are intended for exportation, okay, can be made directly in abandoned manufacturing warehouse. Okay guys, this manufacturing warehouse, by the way, again, will be detailed sooner in this course. Okay, so let us just read on section 801. The manufacturer shall find sufficient security for the faithful observance of all laws, rules, and regulations applicable thereto. Number 2, the application for the establishment of bonded warehouses must be made in writing and filed with the customs officer describing the premises, the location and capacity of the same, and the purpose for which the building is to be used pursuant to section 801 of this act. Number 3, from the receipt of the application, the customs officer shall examine the premises, evaluate its location, construction, and means provided for the safekeeping of the goods. Number 4, the customs officer may authorize the establishment of the customs bonded warehouse and accept a bond for its operation and maintenance if the applicant was compliant with the prescribed requirements. And lastly, the operator of the bonded warehouse shall pay an annual supervision fee in an amount to be fixed by the commissioner. So these are the conditions that CMTA is asking the manufacturers, okay, or any person who would like to import or manufacture a certain raw material or parts into something that they are going to import, then they need to follow the following conditions that are set forth under section 801 of the CMTA. Okay? So, but anyways, again, as I've told you, we're going to focus on studying each and every one of this later on this course. Okay, let us now proceed to section 802. So these are the types of customs bonded warehouse. Okay, so just like what we have discussed earlier, customs bonded warehouses may be classified as either manufacturing or non-manufacturing. Okay, so when we talk about manufacturing customs bonded warehouse, it can be the following types. Letter A or number 1, miscellaneous customs bonded warehouse. Letter B, customs common bonded warehouse. And letter C, industry specific bonded warehouse. Again, we are going to discuss that further within this course. Okay, and then, so the second type is the non-manufacturing customs bonded warehouse, which include the public bonded warehouse and the private bonded warehouse and other customs facilities, which we have already discussed earlier on today. Okay? So now let's proceed to section 803 of the CMTA. The title is Types of Customs Facilities and Warehouses. Okay? So section 803 is telling us about the types of customs warehouses and customs facilities. And it says here that this includes what we have discussed earlier, container yard, and then container freight station, seaport warehouses, and airport warehouses. So those are the types of customs facilities and warehouses. And again, we're going to discuss more of that within this course. Okay, section 803 also is saying that subject to the consultation with NEDA and the DTI, and based on prevailing economic circumstances, the Secretary of Finance may, upon the recommendation of the Commissioner, create or dissolve certain types of warehouses. Okay? So, the establishment and the supervision is within the jurisdiction of the district collector, subject to the approval of the Commissioner. But for the customs facilities and warehouses, it will be subject to the consultation with NEDA and DTI, and then It will be upon the recommendation of the commissioner if ever that a certain facility or warehouse can be dissolved or created. Okay, so that is what section 803 is telling us about. Now let's proceed to section 804. Okay, the title of section 804 is application of operation of a customs warehouse. Okay, so it says here that application for the establishment of CBW and CFW shall be filed with the district collector where the CBW or CFW is located, describing the premises, location, capacity, and purpose thereof. Okay? So, ang pag-apply ng customs warehouse will be with the district collector. Okay? Kung nasaan yung CBW or CFW mo. Okay? And you need to describe the premises, location, capacity, and purpose thereof. By the way, there are certain CAOs or Customs Administrative Order for the application or for the operation of a customs bonded warehouse. And again, we are going to discuss that further later on this set. Okay? So, Section 804 says, upon receipt of such application, the district collector shall examine the premises of such proposed warehouse, particularly its location, construction, and storage facility. The district collector, with the approval of the commissioner, may authorize the establishment of customs warehouses and accept the required security for its operation and maintenance. The operator of such CBW and CFW shall pay an annual supervision fee as determined by the commissioner. So again, when a certain person or a certain company would like to establish a warehouse, they need to apply it directly with the district collector. Okay? So when the district collector receives the application, he is going to examine the premises of such proposed warehouse. So meaning there will be an inspection that will be done, okay? Especially the location, the construction, and the storage facilities. Okay? And also the district collector, upon the approval of the commissioner, they can authorize the establishment of a customs warehouse, and they are also the ones to accept the required security fee for its operation and maintenance. So a certain customs bonded warehouse has a bond or a security fee that they need to submit as a requirement for its operation and maintenance. Okay? And the operator of the CBW and the CFW also shall pay an annual supervision fee. So aside from the surety bond or the security bond that they need to provide, they also would be paying an annual supervision fee as determined by the commissioner. Again, we are going to determine the exact amount of that supervision fee in the CAOs that we're going to be discussed later on this SEM as well. Okay? So that is section 804. Now let us proceed to section 805. By the way, guys, are you still there? Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yes po.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Wait lang. Sabihin pa. So let us now proceed to section 805. Responsibility of operators. Okay? So the operator of a CBW or CFW, by the way, when we talk about CBW, we are pertaining to customs bonded warehouse. Okay? CFW container. Wait lang. Customs facility and warehouses. Okay? CBW's customs bonded warehouse, CFW's customs facilities and warehouses. Okay? So, ano daw yung responsibilities ng operators? Okay, the operator of a CBW or CFW shall comply with the customs requirements on establishment, security, suitability, and management, including stock keeping and accounting of the goods of the CBW and the CFW. Okay? Upon lawful demand, the operator of a CBW or CFW shall allow authorized representative of the Bureau access to the premises at a reasonable time and to all documents, books, and records of accounts pertaining to the operations of the CBW and the CFW. Okay? So, sinasabi lang ni Section 805 kung ano ba daw yung responsibility ng mga gustong mag-operate ng CBWs and CFWs. Okay? So, when they would like to operate, they really need to submit the requirements to the Bureau of Customs. Okay? And they are also going to allow the representative of the Bureau of Customs to access their premises, because as I said earlier, there will really be an inspection that will happen because the Bureau or the representative of the Bureau will be looking if that particular place or premise will be okay or suitable for the establishment of CBW or CFW. Okay? And aside from the premise, they also will be looking at the documents, the books, and the records of accounts that are pertaining to the operation of that particular CBW or CFW. Okay? So, ang sabi pa dito, in case of loss of the goods stored in a CBW or CFW due to operator's gross negligence or willful misconduct, the operator shall be liable for the payment of duties, taxes, and due thereof. Okay? The government assumes no legal responsibility over the safekeeping of goods stored in customs warehouse, yard, or premises. So this is what you need to take note of, guys. So in case now that the goods that are stored in the CBW or the CFW will be lost, okay, due to the gross negligence, there should be a gross negligence that will or willful misconduct, okay, of the operator for them to be paying the duties, taxes, and other charges. Okay, but if ever that they can prove that they are that they did not do any willful misconduct or gross negligence, then they can bring the issue in the Bureau of Customs and tell them or prove to them that you have not committed any gross negligence or willful misconduct for you not to be able to pay the duties, taxes, and other charges. Okay? And again, the government has no legal responsibility over the safekeeping of goods stored in that particular CBW or CFWs. Okay? It is always the operator that has the responsibility over the goods that are inside their premises or yard or warehouse. Okay? So that is 805, the responsibility of the operators. Okay, Section 806, Customs Control over CBWs and CFW. Okay, so it says here that the Bureau shall, for customs purposes, exercise control over, direct, and manage CBWs and CFWs pursuant to Section 303 of this Act, and likewise over the goods thereat pursuant to Section 301 of this Act, provided that the Bureau shall not be liable for any loss or damage of the goods stored for safekeeping in any CPW, CFW, yard, or premises. Okay? So, again, Section 806 is just telling that the Bureau of Customs, okay, shall have the exclusive control, okay, and they have to direct and manage the CPW and CFW pursuant to Section 303 of this Act. Okay? And also Section 301 of this Act. Provided further, as I've said earlier, that they shall not be liable for any loss or damage of the goods. Okay, so what does Section 303? So Section 303 of the CMTA is the control over premises used for customs purposes. So since those CBWs and warehouses are used for customs purposes, then it will be under Section 303 of this Act. And also, Section 301, which is customs control over goods. Okay? So, sinasabi sa Section 301 that lahat ng goods na papasok, including the transport its transport, okay? So, lahat ng goods na papasok at aalis, the entering and leaving customs territory, okay, they will be subject to customs control to include compliance. So, that is also what Section 806 is telling us about, okay? That the Bureau of Customs shall have control over the goods and also over the CBWs and the CFWs. Okay, so that is Section 806. Section 807 naman, discontinuance of CBW and CFW. The use of any CBW and CFW may be discontinued by the district collector when conditions so warrant or upon receipt of a written request from the operator thereof. Okay, provide that all requirements of the law and regulations have been complied by the said operator. Where dutiable goods are stored in such premises, the same must be removed at the risk and expense of the operator, provided, however, that the premises shall not be relinquished and its use shall not be discontinued until after a careful examination of the account of the warehouse shall have been made. Discontinuance of the use of any warehouse shall be effective upon approval thereof by the district collector, who shall within 10 days inform the commissioner of such action in writing. So when we talk about discontinuance of CBW and CFW, it means that it will be stopped. Okay, so for whatever reason, for example, the operator would like to have the CBW or the CFW closed. Okay, so what they need to do, okay, is that they need to let the district collector know, okay, if they would like to have their CBW and CFW discontinued. Okay, they need to have a written request. The operator needs to create a written request to the district collector, and the district collector has the responsibility to determine whether or not that particular CBW or CFW should be closed or discontinued. Okay, but it says here that the requirements of the law should have been complied with by the said operator, meaning that for them to be able to legally close their CBW and CFW, they need to follow the requirements, or they need to submit the requirements, and they need to follow the rules and regulations that are being given to them by the Bureau of Customs for the legal closure of their establishment. Okay, again, we're going to discuss that further. What are the steps and what are the requirements that they need for a certain CBW to be closed? Okay. Now, it says here that when a dutiable good is stored, for example, there is still cargo inside that particular warehouse, or there is still a dutiable goods that are inside that premises, those cargo shall be removed at the risk and at the expense of the operator. Okay. So the Bureau of Customs will have no responsibility in the closure, even though there is still, even though there are still dutiable goods inside that particular warehouse or facility. Okay? Provided, however, that the premise shall not be relinquished and its use shall not be discontinued until after a careful examination of the account shall have been made. Okay? So we cannot just close that particular establishment or warehouse immediately. Okay? So if ever the operator would like or to have that particular establishment closed, it will not be closed easily or directly. Okay? They still need to be examined carefully, okay, if they are really, again, legally allowed to be closed or discontinued. Okay? So the discontinuance of the use of any warehouse shall be effective upon approval thereof, again, by the district collector, and the district collector shall within 10 days inform the commissioner of such action in writing. Again, it should be in writing. It cannot just be through verbal communication. All the communication should be in writing. Okay? Notice of discontinuance made by the operator shall not result in the discharge from any duties, taxes, fees, and other charges imposed on dutiable goods in the said warehouse. Okay? So, for example, that a particular operator still needs to pay the duties, taxes, and other charges, and they would like the particular warehouse to be closed. It doesn't mean that when they are closing the warehouse, it doesn't mean that they are not paying duties, taxes, and other charges anymore. So they still need to pay the duties, taxes, and other charges if there are any dutiable articles in that particular warehouse. Okay, so that is section 807. Can you still follow, guys? Hello?
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, I hope that you are jotting down notes, guys. Okay, let's continue. Section 808. Warehousing security on goods stored in CBWs. Okay, section 808. Warehousing security on goods stored in CBWs. Okay, it says here that for goods declared in the entry for warehousing in CBWs, the district collector shall require the importer to post a sufficient security equivalent to the computed duties, taxes, and other charges continued upon the withdrawal of the goods within the period prescribed by Section 811 of this Act, or the payment of duties, taxes, and other charges in compliance with all importation requirements. So this is what Section 808 is telling us about. So for example, a certain importer imported a certain goods or cargo into the Philippines, and they would like to have it transferred into a CBW. Okay, so this will be an entry for warehousing. Okay, if it is an entry for warehousing, that particular importer will not be paying duties, taxes, and other charges. Okay, because they are going to bring that particular commodity into a customs banded warehouse. So what the Bureau of Customs will be requiring the importer is they need to post a sufficient security fee, okay, or what we are calling the surety bond. Okay, so this is an insurance, okay, that will cover if something happens to that particular commodity that are inside the Bureau of the CBWs. Okay, so since the importer is not paying duties, taxes, and other charges yet, because this will be for warehousing entry, then they will be just the Bureau of Customs would just need to ask for a security fee or a surety bond, and these surety bonds are being paid by the importer, and they are going to get it from a surety company or an insurance company, and it should be signed by the importer and also the insurance company, and that particular surety bond will tell them that if something happens to the commodity, then that insurance company will be paying the Bureau of Customs of the duties, taxes, and other charges, which is equal to the amount of that particular commodity that is inside the CBW. Okay? So that is the reason why they need to have a security fee or a sufficient security, which is equivalent to the computed duties, taxes, and other charges. Kasi those commodities in the warehousing facilities, they are not paid of duties, taxes, and other charges yet. Okay, so they need to have a surety bond or a security, sufficient security for that particular importation. Okay, so that is what Section 808 is telling us about. Okay, now Section 809, withdrawal of goods from the CBWs. Imported goods shall be withdrawn from the CBWs when necessary withdrawal permit has been filed, together with any related document required by any provision of this Act and other regulations. Okay, so when a certain importer would like to have a part of their commodity that is inside the CBW or CFW be withdrawn, okay, they need to have a withdrawal permit. Okay, they need to file a withdrawal permit in the Bureau of Customs and all the other related documents. Okay, telling the Bureau that they would like to withdraw that particular commodity that they would be needing to be out of that particular warehouse. Okay, goods entered under sufficient security as provided for in Section 1507 of this Act may be withdrawn at any time for consumption, transit, or exportation. The withdrawal must be made by CBW operator or its duly authorized representative. Okay, so sinasabi dito that if your goods was entered with sufficient security or the security bond that I've been telling you earlier, then you can withdraw any part of that particular commodity inside the warehouse for consumption, for transit, or for re-exportation. Okay? So that's the reason why they need to have a sufficient security. Okay? Because the importer can have a particular part of that particular commodity withdrawn, or the whole importation itself withdrawn from the CVW. Okay? So that is what section 809 is telling us about. Okay? Now, section 810, release of goods from CFWs. Imported goods shall be released when the goods declaration is electronically lodged together with any related document required by any provision of this Act and other regulations. All goods entered into CFW shall be subject to the filing of a goods declaration within the period specified under section 407 of this Act. Okay, so when a certain importer would like to have their goods released from a CFW, they need to file a goods declaration. They need to lodge an entry. Okay? And they need to submit all of the other related documents, invoice, packing list, and all the other documents that are being asked by the Bureau of Customs. Okay? So, they really need to file a goods declaration. Okay? If they enter their goods into the CFW. Okay? So, before they release the goods, they need to file a goods declaration. Okay? So they should be following section 607 on until when they need to file a goods declaration. So as per section 407, the filing of goods declaration shall be it must be lodged within 15 days from the date of discharge of the last package from the vessel or aircraft. The period to file the goods declaration may, upon request, extended on valid grounds for another 15 days. Okay? Provided that the request is made before the expiration and the original period within which to file the goods declaration, provided, however, that the period of lodgement of goods declaration may be adjusted by the commissioner. So, the lodgement of goods that should be followed should be those, or should be that is specified under section 407 of the CMTA. Okay? So that is section 810. Now, let's proceed to section 811. Section 811 is saying about period of storage in CVWs. Okay? So sabi dito, goods entered for warehousing may remain in a CVW for a minimum period of 1 year from the time of its arrival thereat. Okay? For perishable goods, the storage period shall be 3 months from the date of arrival, extendable for valid reason, and upon written request to another 3 months. Okay? Goods not withdrawn after the expiration of the prescribed period shall be deemed abandoned as per the CMTA as well. Okay? So, the maximum period for a certain commodity to be inside a warehouse is 1 year from the time of its arrival. Okay? Tandaan, 1 year from the time of its arrival, that is the period where the goods should be inside the warehouse. Okay? For perishable goods naman, by the way guys, what are perishable goods? You have any idea of what a perishable good is?
Mapabilis mo siya.
Okay, very good, Giselle. So when we talk about perishable goods, we're talking about goods that are easily perish. That's why they're called perishable goods. Yung mga nabubulok, mga nasisira agad. Okay? So, pag mga perishable goods ang ipapasok sa warehousing, the maximum period is only 3 months from the date of arrival. Okay? And it can be extendable, but it should be on valid reasons and upon, again, written request for another 3 months. So, that is a maximum of 6 months for perishable goods. But for regular cargos, it is a maximum of 1 year. Okay? So, goods that are not withdrawn after the expiration of the prescribed period shall be deemed abandoned. Okay? So, kapag hindi sila na-withdraw sa warehouse after the maximum period, they will be deemed abandoned and they will be treated as per section 1129 of the CMTA. Okay? It also says here that the Commissioner shall, in consultation with the Secretary of Trade and Industry, establish a reasonable period limit beyond 1 year for bundled goods for manufacturing and intended for export, the processing into finished products of which requires a longer period based on industry standard and practice subject to the approval of the Secretary of Finance. Okay, but there is an exemption for the 1 year maximum. If your commodity is for manufacture, okay, if it will be manufactured, the commissioner can give a reasonable period of time, but they should be consulting with the Department of Trade and Industry, okay, if that particular commodity really needs to stay longer in the warehouse, okay. If they will be processed for re-exportation or into a finished product that requires a longer period of time to be finished, then upon the approval of the Secretary of Finance, the Commissioner can establish a reasonable storage period limit beyond 1 year. Okay? So, pwede naman yung extend ng 1 year if your commodity is for manufacture. Okay? So, that is 811. Do you have any questions, guys? Are you still following? Are you still following?
Yes, Mama.
Okay. Do you have any question? Do you have any further question, guys? Malinaw ba lahat? Malinaw naman lahat? Maliwanag ba, guys? Hello? Hi. Maliwanag ba? Okay, good. So let's continue. We only have 2 more sections to finish for this day. Okay? So we are now on section 812. Section 812, exception from duty of goods in CBWs. Okay, it says here that goods duly entered for warehousing in CBW shall be exempted from duty and tax within the allowed period of storage unless withdrawn for consumption, exportation, or transit to a free zone or another CBW, in which case such withdrawal will be subject to the applicable rules and regulations on the liquidation of warehousing entry. Okay? So, lahat daw ng goods that are entered for warehousing will be exempt from duty and tax. Okay? Within the allowed period of storage. Okay? So, always remember that when a certain commodity is subject for warehousing, they will not be paying duties and taxes yet. They will be exempted. Okay? For a certain period of time. So, again, section 811, the maximum is 1 year. Okay? Unless they are going to withdraw it for consumption or exportation or transit to another port or another CBW. So, they will be paying, the importer will be paying duties, taxes, and other charges if ever that they will be withdrawing a certain commodity from the particular warehouse. Okay? The withdrawal will be subject to the applicable rules and regulations on liquidation on the warehousing entry. Okay? So again, just remember that when you entered a certain shipment for warehousing, you will not be paying duties, taxes, and other charges. You are just going to pay the duties, taxes, and other charges when you are going to withdraw a certain commodity inside that particular customs bonded warehouse. Okay? So that is section 812. Lastly, section 813, records to be kept by the CBW operators. An account shall be kept by the Bureau of all goods delivered to a CBW, and a report shall be made by the CBW operator containing a detailed statement of all imported goods entered and withdrawn from the CBW. The Bureau shall specify the format of the report and may require electronic submission. Okay? So, it says here that the Bureau of Customs should have the account. Okay? And they should be keeping that, all the accounts of the goods that are delivered to a CBW. Okay? And the CBW operator should be reporting the detailed statement of all the imported goods that are entered and withdrawn in his or her CBW. Okay? The Bureau also shall specify the format of the report, and they will be requiring an electronic submission. All documents, books, and records of accounts concerning the operation of the CBW shall upon demand be made available to the district collector for the representative of the district collector for examination and for audit. The records purposes, all documents shall be kept for 3 years. Okay? So, the CBW operator also need to have the records of all the goods that are coming in and out of their warehouse. Okay? So by the way guys, take note that the CBW is different from the importer. Okay? The importer is the ones who rent the CBW operators for their goods to be in that particular warehouse. Okay? So the CBW operator should have the records of those goods that are imported or those goods that will be exported that get inside their warehouse or that were put inside the CBW's warehouse. And it should be all the books, the records, the accounts that concerns all the operation. Okay? They should be providing the district collector or the representative of those things for them to audit or for them to examine. And they should be, for record purposes, keep all the documents within 3 years. Okay? So that is section 813 is telling us about. Okay? So that is your customs warehouses.